There's a moment just before dawn in the Mentawai Islands when the forest doesn't wake up all at once. It stutters. A bird calls. Then silence. Then another bird answers from somewhere deeper in the canopy. The air is thick and wet, and if you're standing outside one of the longhouses on Sikerei Island, you can hear the river moving below, constant and low, like breathing. This is when Aman Boroiogok usually steps outside. He's in his 60s, maybe older. No one keeps exact track here. He's barefoot, and his sarong is tied loosely at his waist. He doesn't stretch or yawn. He just stands there for a minute, looking at the trees, and then he reaches for a small woven bag hanging from a wooden post. Inside are leaves. Roots. A piece of bark wrapped in banana fiber. He's a Sikerei. That's the Mentawai word for shaman. And today, someone in the village is sick. I'm Maya, and this channel is about the parts of the world we don't usually stop to notice. The traditions that don't make headlines. The knowledge systems that survive quietly, in places most of us will never visit. Today, we're going to talk about the Mentawai people, specifically a subgroup often referred to in anthropological literature as the Sikerei, though that term itself is contested. We're going to talk about their healers, their relationship with the unseen world, and what happens when ancient practice meets modern pressure. This isn't a story about mysticism or exoticism. It's a story about continuity. About what it takes to keep something alive when the world around it is changing fast. The Mentawai Islands sit about 100 miles off the western coast of Sumatra, Indonesia. There are 4 main islands. Sikerei is the largest and the most isolated. For a long time, that isolation protected the people here. While much of Indonesia converted to Islam or Christianity, while Dutch colonizers and later the Indonesian government tried to integrate remote communities into the national fold, the Mentawai held on. They kept their language. They kept their tattoos. They kept their belief system, which revolves around the idea that everything, absolutely everything, has a soul. The trees. The river. The pigs they raise. The wooden carvings in the longhouse. And of course, people. But people don't just have one soul. They have multiple souls, and those souls can wander. They can get lost. They can be stolen by spirits. And when that happens, you get sick. That's where the Sikerei comes in. Aman Boroiogok learned his craft from his father, who learned it from his father. The training isn't formal in the way we'd recognize. There's no curriculum, no certification. It's passed down through observation, through participation, through long nights sitting beside an elder while they chant and smoke tobacco and enter a trance state. You learn the plant medicines. You learn the songs, which aren't really songs in the Western sense. They're more like repetitive, droning invocations, each one tied to a specific spirit or a specific ailment. You learn how to read the signs. A certain type of dream. The way smoke curls. The behavior of animals near the longhouse. And you learn, above all, that your role is not to control the spirits. It's to negotiate with them. The longhouse where Aman Boroiogok lives is about 60 feet long, raised on stilts, with a thatched roof that sags in the middle from years of rain. Inside, it's dim even during the day. Light filters through gaps in the woven walls. There's a central corridor, and on either side are family compartments, separated by low partitions. Smoke from cooking fires drifts up and out through the roof. Everything smells like wood and wet earth and tobacco. Today, a woman named Teru is lying on a woven mat in one of the compartments. She's been sick for 3 days. Fever. Headache. A feeling, she says, like something is pressing on her chest. Her husband thinks it might be malaria. There's a clinic in the next village over, about 2 hours by boat. But Teru wants to see Aman Boroiogok first. Not instead of the clinic. First. This is something that gets misunderstood a lot. The idea that indigenous medicine and modern medicine are in opposition. In places like this, they're not. They coexist. People here aren't rejecting modernity. They're incorporating it into a worldview that's much older. Aman Boroiogok himself will tell you that if someone has a broken bone, you go to the hospital. If someone has a gunshot wound, you go to the hospital. But if someone's soul is out of balance, if the spirits are upset, if there's a disturbance in the unseen world, then you come to him. The two systems aren't competing. They're addressing different problems. Aman Boroiogok kneels beside Teru. He doesn't touch her right away. He closes his eyes and starts to hum, low and rhythmic. After a while, he reaches into his bag and pulls out a bundle of leaves. He crushes them between his palms, and the smell is sharp, almost medicinal. He rubs the crushed leaves on her forehead, her wrists, her chest. Then he begins to chant. The words are in Mentawai, but even if you spoke the language, you might not understand all of it. Some of the phrases are archaic. Some are specific to the ritual context. He's speaking to the spirits now, not to the people in the room. He's asking them what they want. Why they've taken an interest in Teru. What needs to be restored. The Mentawai cosmology is not hierarchical in the way a lot of religious systems are. There's no supreme deity. There are spirits, tons of them, and they're not good or evil. They're capricious. They have needs and moods. Some are associated with the forest. Some with the river. Some with the ancestors. If you disrespect them, even accidentally, they might make you sick. If you fail to perform the right ritual, if you don't make the right offering, if you cut down the wrong tree or kill the wrong animal, there are consequences. The Sikerei's job is to figure out what went wrong and how to fix it. It's diagnostic and therapeutic at the same time. This is where things get complicated, because the Mentawai Islands are not untouched. They haven't been for a long time. In the 1970s, the Indonesian government launched a program called the Civilization Campaign. The goal was to integrate isolated groups into mainstream Indonesian society. In practice, that meant forcing people to move out of longhouses and into government-built villages. It meant banning traditional practices, including tattooing and shamanic rituals. It meant building churches and mosques and schools. The Mentawai resisted, but not always successfully. A lot of young people converted. A lot of traditional knowledge was lost. By the 1990s, there were fewer than a dozen Sikerei left on Siberut. Aman Boroiogok was one of them. But here's the thing. The story didn't end there. In the early 2000s, there was a shift. The Indonesian government, under pressure from NGOs and human rights groups, began to reverse some of its policies. Traditional practices were no longer banned. Longhouses were rebuilt. And a younger generation of Mentawai people, many of whom had grown up in the government villages, started coming back. Not all of them. But enough. They wanted to learn the old ways. They wanted to reconnect with their culture. And that meant finding the remaining Sikerei and asking them to teach. Aman Boroiogok now has 3 apprentices. One of them is his nephew, a man in his 30s named Aman Sailo. Aman Sailo works as a tour guide when there are tourists, which isn't often. He speaks some English. He's been to Padang, the nearest big city. He has a cell phone, though the signal out here is terrible. But he also knows how to prepare the ritual medicines. He knows the chants. He's learning to enter the trance state, which is harder than it sounds. It requires focus and endurance and a kind of mental discipline that doesn't come naturally to most people. When I asked him why he wanted to become a Sikerei, he thought about it for a long time. Then he said, because if we don't, it stops. And if it stops, we're not Mentawai anymore. That's not nostalgia. It's not romanticism. It's a very practical recognition that culture isn't just a set of artifacts or a list of customs. It's a living system. And if the people who know how to operate that system die without passing it on, the system dies too. The Mentawai have already lost a lot. Their language is endangered. Fewer than 70,000 people speak it, and most of them are older. The tattoo tradition, which used to be universal, is now rare. The ritual cycle, which used to govern the rhythm of the year, is now compressed and fragmented. But the Sikerei tradition is still here. Barely. And people like Aman Boroiogok and Aman Sailo are fighting to keep it that way. Let's talk about what actually happens in a healing ceremony, because it's not what you might expect. There's no dramatic exorcism. No convulsions or speaking in tongues. It's quieter than that. More methodical. Aman Boroiogok will sit with the patient for hours, sometimes all night. He'll chant. He'll smoke tobacco, which is considered sacred. He'll sometimes sacrifice a chicken, not as a blood offering in the horror movie sense, but as a way of giving the spirits something they value. The chicken's liver is examined for signs. The patterns of fat and discoloration are read like a map. This is divination, and it's taken very seriously. If the liver looks wrong, if the signs are bad, the ritual might be repeated. Or expanded. Or a different spirit might be invoked. The goal is always the same, to bring the wandering soul back. To restore balance. To repair the relationship between the patient and the spirit world. And here's the interesting part. It often works. Not in the sense that the fever breaks immediately or the headache vanishes. But in the sense that the patient feels better. There's relief. There's comfort. There's a sense that something has been done, that the community has rallied, that the unseen forces have been addressed. Western medicine would call this the placebo effect, but that term doesn't quite capture what's happening. Because the patient isn't passively receiving a sugar pill. They're participating in a shared cultural narrative. They're being held by their community. They're being reminded that they're not alone, that their suffering matters, that there are people who know how to help. And sometimes, the physical symptoms do improve. There are plants in the Mentawai pharmacopoeia that have real medicinal properties. Aman Boroiogok uses a root that reduces fever. He uses a bark that has anti-inflammatory effects. He uses leaves that help with stomach pain. Some of this knowledge has been documented by ethnobotanists. Some of it hasn't. But it's not magic. It's empirical knowledge accumulated over generations. The difference is that in the Mentawai system, the physical and the spiritual aren't separated. You treat both at the same time. Now, there's a question that comes up a lot when we talk about indigenous healing practices. Should this be preserved? And if so, how? Because the impulse to preserve can itself be a form of colonialism. It can turn living cultures into museum exhibits. It can trap people in a version of their own past that's been curated by outsiders. The Mentawai don't want to be fossils. They want electricity. They want schools. They want access to healthcare. But they also want to remain Mentawai. And those things aren't mutually exclusive. The challenge is finding a way forward that doesn't require them to choose. Aman Sailo talks about this a lot. He's part of a generation that's trying to navigate two worlds. He's seen what happens when tradition is abandoned entirely. He's also seen what happens when it's fetishized by tourists and anthropologists who want to experience something authentic. He's trying to find a middle path. He wants his children to learn the Sikerei traditions. But he also wants them to go to school. He wants them to speak Mentawai. But he also wants them to speak Indonesian, maybe even English. He doesn't see these as contradictions. He sees them as necessities. There's a moment near the end of Aman Boroiogok's healing session with Baitara that stays with me. The chanting has stopped. The fire has burned down to embers. Aman Boroiogok is sitting quietly, and Baitara is asleep. Her breathing is steady. Her husband is sitting nearby, watching. And Aman Boroiogok looks tired. Not physically tired, though he must be. But tired in a deeper way. Like someone who's been carrying something heavy for a long time. He tells me, through Aman Sailo, that he's grateful there are young people willing to learn. But he also says that it's not easy for them. The training is long. The commitment is total. And the world is pulling them in other directions. Money. Jobs. Migration. He's not sure how much longer this can last. But then he says something else. He says that the spirits don't care about politics or governments or modernization. They're still here. They're not going anywhere. And as long as there are people who know how to speak to them, there will be Sikerei. Maybe not many. Maybe not enough. But some. And that's not nothing. The sun is fully up now. The forest is loud. Birds and insects and the constant rustle of leaves. Aman Boroiogok steps outside again, into the light, and he looks the same as he did before dawn. Calm. Steady. Like someone who knows his place in the world and isn't trying to be anywhere else. Tara will wake up in a few hours. She'll drink some tea. She'll eat a little rice. And if she's still sick, her husband will take her to the clinic. But for now, she's resting. The ritual has been performed. The spirits have been addressed. And the forest keeps breathing, the way it always has. If you made it this far, thank you. This is the kind of story that doesn't fit neatly into a headline. It's complicated. It's messy. It doesn't have a tidy ending. But I think it's important. I think the Mentawai, and people like Aman Boroiogok and Aman Sailo, are doing something that matters. They're not just preserving the past. They're figuring out how to carry it forward. And that's a kind of healing too. If you want to support work like this, consider subscribing. Next time, we're going to look at another community that's navigating the space between tradition and change. Until then, take care of yourselves. And maybe take a minute to think about what you'd fight to keep alive if the world around you was shifting. What knowledge would you pass down? What stories would you tell?